I had been hiking alone for years and nothing had ever truly rattled me, not in the way people online like to exaggerate. I trusted myself, trusted the woods, trusted the silence. That trust is exactly what got me cornered last autumn in a section of wilderness that most people in that state probably did not even know existed. I had driven for hours just to reach the trailhead, hoping for a long weekend away from everything. The weather was mild, the sky dull and gray, and the trees were thick enough to swallow the rest of the world whole. It felt perfect at first. My name is Lenford, but friends call me Len. Not that I had brought any friends on this trip. I liked the solitude. The quiet made it easier to think. I had been moving for maybe 4 hours when the ground thinned out ahead of me and I realized I was walking toward a ravine. It wasn't gigantic or dramatic, but it was deep enough that one wrong step would have snapped me like a toothpick. Maybe 30 or 40 feet down was a cold, shallow creek glinting between rocks. The drop was no joke. What crossed the ravine was a giant fallen pine, wedged between both sides like it had been placed there on purpose. The bark was worn smooth, likely from weather and desperate hikers before me. I checked it carefully, pressing my weight on it, listening for cracks. Nothing. It seemed steady enough. I inhaled, kept my balance tight, and crossed to the other side, focusing on every slow step. The moment my feet touched solid ground, relief washed through me, but something else followed with it, a strange thumping noise behind me. I turned and saw a man standing on the opposite side. He looked like he had appeared out of nowhere. He was older, maybe in his late 50s, with a patchy beard and a dirty green jacket that looked like it had been worn for decades. He stood so still that it was hard to tell if he was breathing. For a moment, I thought he might be a hunter or maybe a lost camper, until I noticed the tool in his hands. An axe. A full-sized one. My mind stalled. Before I could speak, he walked toward the fallen tree and raised the axe above his shoulder. Then he swung. The impact echoed sharply across the ravine. Bark split. Wood cracked. He swung again, harder. I shouted at him, asking what he thought he was doing. He didn't respond. He didn't even look up. He just kept hacking at the only safe way across. A horrible thought hit me. He wanted me stuck on this side. I yelled louder, waving my arms, but nothing changed. One of his swings bit deeper than the others, and the tree shifted. Fear surged through me. I screamed at him to stop, but he might as well have been deaf. I called him insane, said things I probably should not have said. That was what finally made him pause. He set the axe down gently, leaned forward, and looked at me fully. His eyes were the darkest part of him, sunken and unsettling, like they didn't reflect any light at all. He spoke in a calm voice that made every hair on my body stand up. He said he knew these woods better than I ever would. He said it simply, like a fact, and somehow that terrified me more than anything else. Then he picked up his axe and turned away, disappearing into the trees with slow, measured steps. I didn't move for a long moment. Everything felt wrong, like the world had tilted out of place. When I finally gathered myself enough to check the fallen pine again, I could see the damage. It was no longer safe. I couldn't cross back. My phone was useless. No signal. Not even the faint bars that disappear as soon as you try sending a text. The sky was starting to dim, and the shadows grew longer in the ravine. I decided to follow the stream downstream, hoping a wider section would offer a safer crossing. I walked for an hour. The ravine only got deeper. The walls narrowed and twisted. It felt like I was being guided somewhere against my will. The sense of unease from earlier had started to grow into something heavier, something crawling up my spine. I had no idea that the worst part of the day had not even started yet. The deeper I followed the ravine, the stranger the forest became. The trees grew taller, their branches knotted together so tightly that sunlight barely reached the floor. The air turned cold, not winter cold, but the kind that feels like it's coming from the ground itself. Every now and then I heard water dripping from places where there shouldn't have been any. The creek beside me babbled quietly, like it was trying to warn me of something. I had been hiking long enough to know the difference between normal forest sounds and the kind that set your instincts on fire. This was the second kind. After what felt like another hour of walking, I finally reached a narrow section of the ravine where the rocks sloped down instead of dropping straight. It still wasn't easy terrain, but at least it wasn't a cliff. I climbed down slowly, slipping twice and scraping my palms. At the bottom, the creek water was icy. I crossed anyway, boots sinking into mud as I pulled myself up the opposite side. By the time I reached the top, I was breathing hard and shaking, partly from exertion and partly from the lingering dread of that man. For a while, the woods were silent. Too silent. I kept checking behind me, expecting to see the bearded man watching me from between the trees, axe in hand. Nothing. The stillness felt deliberate, like the forest was holding its breath. About 20 minutes into the climb toward higher ground, I heard something new. Not footsteps. Not branches snapping. A voice. It was faint, female, coming from somewhere ahead of me. Hello. Is someone there? I froze. Every instinct screamed to stay quiet. No normal person would be out here. I had wandered far off marked trails. Even search and rescue would have had trouble finding this spot. The voice came again, a little louder, trembling. Please, help. My throat tightened. It sounded injured. Scared. Desperate. My brain couldn't decide if it was real or some kind of trick. I took a careful step forward. Where are you? I called out, keeping my tone controlled. No answer. Only breathing. Heavy breathing. Close. The sound came from behind a cluster of spruce trees. I approached slowly, each footstep making the forest seem louder. When I finally stepped around the trees, the sight in front of me made my blood run cold. A woman sat on the ground with her back against a tree, her clothes torn, hair tangled, face streaked with dirt. But there was something off about her posture, the way she stared straight ahead without blinking. Her chest rose and fell too fast, like she was hyperventilating, but the rest of her body was unnaturally still. She didn't react when I approached. Hey, I said gently. Are you hurt? She didn't look at me. Didn't even acknowledge me. Her lips moved slightly, whispering something too soft to understand. I stepped closer. That was a mistake. Her head snapped toward me so fast it didn't look human. Her eyes were wide, whites showing all around, and her pupils were tiny pinpoints. She opened her mouth like she wanted to scream, but the sound that came out wasn't human at all. It was a low, shaking hum that vibrated in my chest, like it came from deeper than her lungs. I stumbled backward. She leaned forward on her hands, bones cracking, joints shifting in ways no persons should. She whispered again, voice stretched thin. You shouldn't be here. I didn't wait for more. I turned and ran, branches slashing at my arms, leaves flying under my boots. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I could hear her following me, not running exactly, but moving in a horrible, uneven rhythm, like she was dragging herself with too much strength in the wrong places. The forest around me blurred. All I could hear was my heartbeat and that awful humming growing louder. I pushed myself until my lungs burned, bursting through a dead patch of brush into a clearing just as the sky finally dimmed into full evening. The humming stopped. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. The woods behind me were still, silent again. Whatever that woman was, if she even was a woman, she hadn't followed me out of the trees. I stayed on the ground until the trembling in my legs eased. I forced myself to stand, knowing I couldn't stay here. I needed to find a road, a trail, anything. But as I turned to keep moving, something on the ground caught my eye. A set of footprints. Fresh ones. Not mine. They were big, heavy, deep heel marks. And there was mud on the edges, as if whoever made them had crossed the creek recently. The bearded man. He was ahead of me now. And he wasn't alone. The footprints led straight into the darker part of the forest, the place where even the dying daylight refused to enter. I stared at them, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The bearded man wasn't just close, he was leading me somewhere. Whether he knew I was behind him or not didn't matter. Every instinct in me said he did. But I couldn't go back. Not with that thing, whatever she was, still somewhere behind me, crawling around the ravine like she belonged to it. So I followed. The forest swallowed what little light was left, and soon I could barely see 5 feet ahead. The air grew colder again, thick with a smell like wet stone and old leaves. The trail he left was easy to follow, though. His boots sank deep into the soft earth, leaving clear impressions. After about 15 minutes, I saw it. A glow. Not bright. Not warm. Just a pale, bluish-white shimmer flickering through the trees like a dying candle. I slowed down, crouching low as I moved closer. The glow came from a clearing surrounded by twisted, charred-looking trees. They all leaned inward like they were listening. The bearded man stood in the center of the clearing. And he wasn't alone. There were 3 of them. Tall figures. Unmoving. Almost blending with the trees themselves. I couldn't see their faces, if they even had faces. They weren't human, that much I knew instantly. Their limbs were too long, their bodies too thin, their outlines, wrong. Like shadows stretched into shapes that pretended to be people. The bearded man knelt in front of them, head bowed. "I brought her back," he said, his voice trembling in a way I hadn't heard before. My stomach dropped. Brought who back? Then something moved near one of the tall shapes. The woman. The one from the trees. She crawled toward them, her joints popping like snapping twigs. When she reached the tallest figure, she curled at its feet, shoulders shaking as if crying, though no sound came out. She ran, the bearded man continued, voice shaking. I tried to stop her. I always do. The tallest figure leaned down slowly, impossibly slowly, its long arm reaching toward the man. When its hand touched his hair, he flinched like a terrified child. Then the figure raised its head. And for the first time, I saw a pair of eyes glowing faintly beneath the darkness of its face. Not human eyes. Not animal eyes. Something older. Something colder. And those eyes turned directly toward me. My breath stopped. I froze completely, like my body forgot how to move. The bearded man whipped around, eyes widening when he spotted me in the brush. "No," he whispered. "Not another one." The tall figure straightened. Its body unfolded upward like smoke rising. It lifted one arm and pointed at me with a long, finger-like limb. The woman on the ground twisted her neck around too far too far, and locked eyes with me. And for a moment, I saw something human flicker in her expression. Fear. That was all the warning I got. A sound erupted from the forest behind me, branches splitting, leaves thrashing, something sprinting toward me with impossible speed. I bolted from the clearing, lungs burning instantly, legs struggling to keep up with panic. I didn't dare look back. Whatever was chasing me sounded like it wasn't touching the ground at all. I ran blindly through the dark until I hit something solid, a rock, a tree, I don't know. I fell hard, rolling down a slope that scraped my arms and legs raw. When I finally stopped, I realized something horrifying. I knew this place. The ravine. I had circled back. The humming began again. That same deep vibration that rattled inside my ribs. It came from above, from the ridge line. Something was up there. Watching. I backed away until my foot hit water. The creek. Freezing cold. That gave me an idea. Not a good one, just the only one. I jumped in. The shock was paralyzing. The current wasn't strong, but it was bitter and fast enough to drag me downstream. Branches slapped my face, rocks bruised my legs, cold crushed the air in my lungs. But the humming faded. Slowly. Then completely. When I finally washed up on a shallow bank, hours seemed to have passed. The stars were overhead. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. But nothing followed me when I climbed out. I staggered through the trees until I hit something I never thought I'd see again. A trail marker. Old. Worn. But real. By sunrise, I reached the parking area. Empty except for my car. I drove without stopping. I didn't breathe right until I hit the highway. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm half asleep, I hear it. The humming. Faint. Far away. But getting closer.